The year 2023 was quite eventful for Nigeria and a taste of two administrations. Former President Muhammadu Buhari exited after a successful general election, which consequently saw the inauguration of President Bola Tinubu. For most Nigerians, 2023 was a very challenging one economically. So, on this edition of Frontiers, we will go down memory lane the year 2023. I am Frama Panyi. In taking a look at the year 2023, we have Dengiefa Angalapu, a political scientist and research analyst with the Center for Democracy and Development. Welcome on Frontiers.
Thank you.
The program continues shortly. Once again, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, and compliment of the season to Nigerians.
Same to you. Now, let's get straight into it. Let's start with the economy. The country witnessed a gross domestic product, of growth at 2.54% in the third quarter of the year. According to, of course, the National Bureau of Statistics. Now, what's your take on this?
Well, quite interesting. The country began, the economic journey in 2023 on a very, mixed note. We had the unemployment figures soaring very high. We had the inflation figures soaring very high, and then lots of issues. And then adding to that, we had a new government that came in that removed fuel subsidy, and that also skyrocketed quite, lots of the prices of, goods and services. So really, I think that we still have more to do in the economy, and basically, I think the major challenge that we have in the country at the moment is the issue of production. So if we look at some of the productive base that we have, I think it's still very much far from being desired. So we have the educator steel that have been abandoned. We have the iron and the cotton industries that have been abandoned that should have provided employment. And let's not forget that the economy is the substructure that every other structure is being, that is being built upon. Whether you're talking about politics, whether you're talking about, social cohesion and stability, you will have to build that on the economy, because an economy that is more viable will mean that citizens are able to, get what they want. The competition that scarcity brings is brought, reduced to the barest minimum. So I think that the economy in Nigeria that we have today, it's something that is still far from being desirable. We hope that in the coming year, things will be better for it. Okay,
now you just spoke about the removal of subsidy. The coming of the present administration, saw the removal of the fuel subsidy, which has actually brought about, ripple effects on other sectors, leading to rising cost of goods and services all round. Let's focus on this. Tell us your take about this.
When the president came up to say fuel subsidy has been removed, it was actually taken with mixed feelings. Mixed feelings because many experts believe that it was due to be removed. Lots of beyond all of the agitations against the removal that we had in 2011, 2012, and during this period. After then, experts began to agree that it was taking too much from us and it had to be removed. Well, the big issue is that the way it was removed was the problem. On the inauguration speech of the president, he came up to say subsidy is gone, and at that particular time, the president had not even set up the cabinet yet. So the economic policies of the president had not been made known. We've not seen the strength of his cabinet and all of that, and it was removed. And immediately the prices of goods went high. It affected transportation and all of that. Not just transportation, it also affected security. That's where many people do not even talk about the fact that security sector governance depends on petrol. So for example, if you go to the police station, if you go to different security agencies, they will tell you that they don't have perhaps, fuel to move around, to patrol and all of that. So that even connects to some of the urban crimes that we have, like, the popular one called the one chance and all of that. So that had lots of effect on Nigerians. And then of course the president, in his wisdom, decided that there were going to be some palliative measures. But the palliative measures also, I think that should have been done in a way that will get to the poorest of the poor. One big issue that we have in Nigeria is that we don't have a good social register. So you give these monies to the governors, and we've not really actually seen the effect of these monies on the poorest of the poor. So the biggest challenge is, how would you, get these monies down to the poorest of the poor? I would have thought that the best way would be to invest in transportation. So when you invest in transportation, whether you are rich or you're poor, those vehicles are going to be available for you to, to convey you to one place to the other. I would have thought that that money would have been invested in the educational sector, so that look at the primary schools that we have now. It seems as though it is just when you don't have an option anymore that you send your child to the government primary schools. But before now, I know, looking at history in Nigeria, the government primary schools and government schools were the best. So I would have thought that monies would have been invested in the educational system in Nigeria. That way, directly or indirectly, it gets to the poorest of the poor.
Let's look at the last 3 months, or the first 3 months of the year rather. The Naira redesign policy of the CBN led to chronic, shortage of cash, which disrupted, economic activities and livelihoods. Many people actually complained and suffered. Now, how would you think that should have been handled, to handle that issue differently?
Well, when I think back at that policy and then think of the suffering, it's a bit very saddening. Well, I will begin by saying that we ought to know ourselves. A Greek philosopher said, "Man, know thyself." That policy came at a time when we had lots of technological challenges. We have several areas in Nigeria are underbanked. There are no banks in different local governments, and in some places it is just the urban areas that have banks, and that caused a lot of suffering. I would have thought that there would have been a step-by-step process. Why are we in a hurry? We know that cashless policy, it's a good thing. We know that the huge cash flows that we have connects to a lot of things, including money laundering and then security, in terms of all of the monies that have been used to pay kidnappers as ransom and all of that. So it's important. It was an important policy in my opinion, but it came it was more of a it was too much of it. It came too much in a rush. We would have sat down to say, why don't we deal with the technological issues that we have? Why don't we deal with the banking issues that we have? Why don't we look for alternatives first? Like I said, man, know thyself. We know our problems in Nigeria. And at the end, let us see the issues that it caused. Many of the small-scale businesses that we have could not operate because you don't expect to be buying, plantain of 500, of 200 naira, and you want to transfer. And look at, and people are not even talking about the wastage that came with that policy. Many people had to change the cash that they have for a lesser amount just because they wanted the new currency. So somebody will tell you that I have the new currency, 1,000 naira, and then you have 5,000 naira that is a waste now because it is no longer in use. So why don't you give me the 5,000 naira so that I will give you 1,000 naira? So a lot of negative things happened, whether intended or unintended. So I think that we are used to we are used to drafting policies and implementing policies in Nigeria without first thinking of the multiple effects and ripple effect it will have on Nigerians. So I would have thought that policy would have been, thought through. And then the excuse of that policy was to ensure that we have, a balanced forest exchange. I don't think that even happened. After the policy, we still saw how naira depreciated, and at the point it came to 1,300 naira to $1. So I don't think that policy actually worked. It was a policy that did not realize the fact that Nigerians are very poor, the banking system is very underdeveloped, and much has to be done before that kind of a policy is done.
And you had spoken about security earlier. Let's delve into that. You know, banditry and kidnapping still persist, you know, though a lot is being done and, you know, to tackle insecurity nationwide, but we still see gaps and loopholes. How do you think this can be squarely addressed?
Very, very important question. So the issue of security, it's very challenging. So before now, we had the Niger Delta crisis. After the Niger Delta crisis had come to a bit of a halt, we had the Northeast issue, the Boko Haram and ISWAP issue in the Northeast, and now it is no more a thing of of a circle where you have just the Niger Delta or you have the Northeast. It has gone to the Northwest where you have banditry. It has gone to the Southeast where you have secessionist agitations and the issue of unknown gunmen. We have the farmer-elder conflict that dovetails to different socio-political issues across the country. Now, how do we deal with this multifaceted issue? It is hydra-headed, because if you look at the casualty figures that we have in Nigeria, despite the fact that Nigeria is not in a civil war, if you look at all of the West African countries, half of the casualty figures in all of the casualties in West Africa comes from Nigeria. I think you should check that out. It comes from Nigeria. Okay. And it is actually, mind-boggling, because we are not even in a civil war. How do we deal with this issue? There is no straitjacket answer. There is no single answer to that question. But I mean, different multiple solutions. One is the economy. So poverty has been one of the oldest rallying points that forces people to violence. When people are poor, they lack the economic might. I mean, they are easy rallying point of recruitment into violence. That has been proven with the Northeast violence. That has been proven with the Niger Delta issues. Even in the Northwest where we have issues. So the issue is deal with the unemployment issues, deal with the economic issues that we have. That is one. The other one is deal with the issues of justice system. Why are we having all of these issues in Nigeria? In some areas like the Southeast, they believe that they don't have a stake in this country. They believe that they just believe they are marginalized in this country. How do you deal with that? And it is not just in the Northeast. We have issues of that in the Niger Delta and the South. We also have the issues about neglect in the Northwest, where you have the Hausa Fulani communities at loggerhead, feeling, I mean, some of the infrastructural activities that are supposed to be brought to perhaps the Fulani communities are brought to the Hausa communities, or people thinking that one part is more educated than the other and all of that. So the justice system has to be fixed. And when you talk about the justice system, there are two aspects of the justice system. We have the modern judicial system that has to punish crime. So a crime that is not punished is reinforced. And in Nigeria, we've come to the habit of not punishing crime. When you punish a crime adequately, it goes into extinction. But when people say that they do same kind of things over and over again and it is not punished, I mean, it will go on and on. Look at the Plateau killing. I mean, that has gone on for a very long time, the Plateau issue. And we are just acting as if, the people that have been killed now is just something that is happening within these few months. No, that has been there for several years. What have we done? How many people have been brought to book? So the justice system is very important. And then, that is the modern justice system. We also have the traditional justice system. When people talk about ungoverned spaces, I sometimes do not agree. I don't believe Nigeria has ungoverned spaces. We just have less governed spaces, because the landmass of Nigeria has not changed from 1960 till date. Who was governing those places when we had lesser violence? So the whole issue is that we have actually dwindled down the authorities of our traditional rulers. So they don't even have the powers, powers to take critical decisions. They are not brought into the decision-making apparatus of the government. And I think we need to deal with that. When we talk about local government and then traditional authorities, even for local government, we just simply say government of the grassroots. And I tell people, what is government of the grassroots without peace building? We don't even talk about local government in the context of peace building. So it is very, very, very important that we look at the justice system, both the formal and then the traditional justice system. Also, very importantly, It is a decentralization of our security architecture. We have a very centralized police system. When people argue against community policing, and I tell them, is it not happening now? In every compound, in every community, they have the vigilantes, that they pay monthly for security. Is that not community policing? It is already happening, really. So I think that we need to decentralize our policing system, and not just decentralizing the policing system. We have to engage in good intelligence gathering. I mean, when people tell me that bandits move with motorbikes in droves, to attack communities, and I begin to wonder, how did they get that much number of fuel, that large amount of fuel to put in their motorbikes without the security agencies noticing? How did they drive past the several checkpoints without the security operatives noticing? Motorbikes still make some noise, so how did they not notice? So there is just a lot to be done in terms of intelligence gathering. We are not having sophisticated wars like the Israel and the Hamas yet, right? We are just having very primordial kind of war, still having, moving with basic instruments of warfare, and we can't even still deal with them. So I think that there's a lot has to be done. Let us not still forget the issues of oil theft in the Niger Delta. Now we are having surveillance contracts that are given to ex-militants. Now let me even tell you the implication of that. Ex-militants that we have, we have demobilized, we have disarmed. We are probably now mobilizing them again, rearming them again to fight oil thieves. So people will say, oh no, they are not using guns and all of that. And I tell people, do you think they are going to be fighting oil thieves, armed oil thieves with sticks and knives? So the whole idea is that we are mobilizing them. We are now radicalizing these people, because in all they are going to be looking for perhaps their former militant people, to join their contract team to ensure that they are able to secure the pipelines. And what that tells us is state failure, because it means that the official state security apparatus has failed to do what they ought to do, and we are now relying on citizen security to do what they ought to do.
Mr. Angala,
yes.
Hold that thought.
Yes.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll pick up on that discussion. This is Frontiers, and it continues after this timeout. Please stay with us. Glad to know you're still with us on Frontiers. We pick up our conversation with Mr. Angalapo. Now, we were talking about security before we went on that short break. In general, the security in the year 2023.
Yeah, so if you look at the first quarter of the year, it began with all of the apprehensions that the election will not hold because of the fears of insecurity in different geopolitical zones in Nigeria. Well, unfortunately, the elections held, and if you watch the security situation between January to May thereabout, there was a lull in violence. Violence came down, and people were wondering. I mean, we were thinking that because of the election, a lot will happen, but a lot did not happen. I mean, there are explanations for that. But after May, the security situation has been skyrocketing. It has been on a steady rise from May till now. So I think that there's still so much to be done. We still have the issues of banditry. It hasn't changed. We still have the Northeast situation. It hasn't changed. Oil theft also has not changed, despite all of the surveillance contracts and all of that. So I think that there's still a lot to be done. All
right, now let's move to the business aspect now. The business environment has been tough, and it has forced many small business to close and shut down, worsening the country's unemployment situation. The Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria says about 25% of manufacturing business have gone under. What is the way out of this?
There are many variables. If you look at the electricity situation in Nigeria, you wouldn't wonder why businesses are closing down. When you have for example, you have fuel subsidy removed, the fuel prices are so high, and the electricity is also still very epileptic. So I mean, it means that the cost of production has gone very, very, very high, and especially for local producers, I really feel for them, because Nigeria has got a very, 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 very high taste for products, and so if you're selling same products that that are also imported, I mean, many Nigerians will go for the foreign products that they feel are more of standard, and of course you are also still producing those products with a very, very high cost of production. So I mean, sometimes a reasonable thing to do is to just throw in the towel. So that is also something that has become a big issue. The other issue also related, I mean, these issues are so related. One issue is the issue of also, the issue of raw materials. Many places where you get these raw materials, whether you talk about agricultural product and all of that, are places now that have been engulfed by conflict and all of that. So getting these raw materials is now a problem. And even if you get them at a very, very, very high cost, really. And then you have issues of multiple taxation. When people say Nigerians are not paying tax, sometimes I say, oh, okay. But because really, if you go, you have lots of illegal taxation. Sometimes the local government come and then tax you for basket, and then you're not even given the baskets and all of that. Sometimes people just come and then tax you for security fees, lots of different taxations everywhere. So all of these are issues that are actually affecting the operating environment of business. Lots of issues, from security to the electricity situation, to even the customer base, and in terms of how government support in terms of loan facilities to these people. So lots of issues.
All right. Now let's quickly look at the health sector. We have a serious issue there, the mass exodus of doctors going overseas to practice. Talk to us about that problem, how we can tackle that issue.
Well, I think for me it's a natural inclination. Now, begin with the herders. Herders move from where they have lack of green pastures to areas where they have, green pastures. It's a natural inclination. Many people move from the villages where they don't have jobs to the cities where they have jobs. Now, even in the cities, you don't have jobs. And even if you have jobs, you are so underpaid. So it's a natural inclination for people now to move to places where they feel that they can get value. And we can't really change that. It's the freedom of movement is a fundamental human right. Now, so what do we even do? What we have to do is to make sure that the people that has remained here have the best of experience. Let's not forget, this is not the first time. There was a time when Nigeria had serious economic issues. Lots of people were going abroad and all of that. But at a time where the economy was a bit better, people began to calm down. I mean, these people communicate with one another. So when they give people, the doctors here, a very good experience, before you know what is happening, they will calm down. And let's not forget, I tell people, no matter where Nigerians are, whether in China, whether in UK, they are not completely happy. They miss home, really, because you can never have that experience that you have at home. So really, I think that the government needs to take things seriously. Until now, people are going abroad every single day, yet resident doctors are still going on strike. So how do you encourage those people to stay? So for me, really, it's about welfareism. It's about making sure that the people here have the best of life. All right.
Now, quickly moving forward, expectations are high for the coming year. What should government do differently to check the inflation rate, which has risen to 28.2%?
Yeah, so the issue is about production. We have to diversify. We've paid lip service to all the different sectors for a very long time. The Jupiter Steel has been there, massive investment, but of course it has not been completed till now. We've not gotten value for it. The agricultural sector, we've also paid lots of lip service to it. And also the issue about oil theft in Nigeria. We've paid so much lip service to that sector. There's a lot of corruption in that oil sector. We need to deal with that issue. So the whole idea is about production. Let us see how we can maximize local production. So that there is no single way that we can deal with inflation without dealing with the issues of production. So I think that it's one way that we can deal with the economic issues that we have in Nigeria.
Mr. Angalapu, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you for coming on Frontiers.
Thank you so much, and wish Nigerians a very wonderful new year.
Thank you so much. Wish you a happy new year too.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
We have been looking at the year 2023 and the performance of some key sectors of the economy, and our guest has been Dengefa Angalapo, a political scientist and research analyst with the Center for Democracy and Development. I am Frama Panyi.